No, it's not classic chrome. Calling all Fujifilm evangelists, it's time once again to perform Fujifilm apologetics on the internet. So welcome to yet another video where I only say positive things about Fujifilm cameras and endure all the tired comments about,
I would love to use Fujifilm cameras professionally, but I just can't get over that gosh darned autofocus.
well, guess what, idiots? I'm not even talking about the cameras themselves today. I'm not even talking about Fujifilm colors as a whole. I'm going to be talking about one single Fujifilm simulation and why it's the absolute best. And if you disagree with me, how about you go ahead and sell all your Fuji equipment and spend $5,000 on that Sony A9 III, since you clearly don't care about colors at all. Today, I'd like to talk to you about my all-time favorite film simulation within Fujifilm cameras, why I love it so much, and why you should love it just as much as I do. I'm even going to show you how I edit the raw files from a Fuji camera to get the most out of this film sim, and give you one of my Lightroom presets using this film sim as a base entirely for free. So stick around to the end for that. And let me introduce you to Classic Negative. What's up? My name is Walter. I'm a photographer and commercial filmmaker based in the southeastern United States. And on this channel, I'm all about trying to put the fun back into professional photography. So if that's something that makes you feel all warm and cozy inside, even on a cold winter day like today, then subscribe for more crap from me. Now that all the Fuji haters have dropped their negative comments below and already clicked off of the video, let's get to what I'm talking about today. One of the many reasons people switch to and continue to use Fujifilm cameras is the famous Fuji colors. A lot of Fuji users, including myself, are willing to compromise on some other professional camera features like top-tier autofocus because they just love Fuji colors so much. I remember when I got my first Fujifilm camera and was pleasantly surprised at how correct everyone was about these colors. They're so good, in fact, that a lot of Fuji shooters prefer to not even edit their photos. They'll dial in the look they like in the camera itself, shoot JPEG only, and they're perfectly happy. Now, for me personally, I still prefer to shoot RAW and then edit everything in Lightroom, including personal photos that I'm not, shooting for a client or anything. For a little bit there when I first switched to Fuji for all of my still photography, I really wanted to make the JPEG only thing work, but I found that I just liked having that extra latitude and control over my final image after editing. And also I just like editing. I like the process of sitting in front of Lightroom, deciding what photos I'm going to keep and edit, and then really dialing in a specific look for each photo. Now, none of this is really here nor there for this particular video, but I thought it might be useful for you to know going into this conversation what my workflow is. So anyway, when I first got started with Fuji, I really liked Classic Chrome and Astia as my go-to film sims whenever I was editing in color. Chrome really gave me those nice muted tones as a good starting point, and I used to have a more flat and muted style anyway, so it was good for a bit. And then Astia, kind of for some of the same reasons, but for when I wanted some more vibrant pops of color in my images. Then one day last year, when I was editing photos from a wedding I had shot, I went into the camera matching profiles in Lightroom, which is where you want to go if you're editing RAWs from your Fuji camera and still want to take advantage of the film sims. Now, I should specify I was using the Fujifilm XT5 for those who care. Now, whenever you hover your mouse over a camera profile in Lightroom Classic, if you've done this, you know what I'm talking about, it will show you a preview of that image with that color profile on it. And this particular day, I accidentally hovered over Classic Negative, a film sim I had never even tried before, and I was kind of shocked at how much I loved the look. Now, since that fateful day, I've been on a real journey with Classic Neg. For a while there, I really enjoyed it somewhat sparingly, only using it when I wanted a really dramatic look with those strong highlights and shadows, but I thought it was just too much on certain images where I wanted that more flat look. But as time has gone on and I keep shooting and my style has grown and evolved, I found myself gravitating towards Classic Neg more and more and more to where it's now kind of my default starting point when I'm editing any photo in color. Now, before I go any further, I want to touch on what Classic Neg is, what it's modeled after, and why I think it just looks so good. I could be off on this, as I had a little bit of a hard time finding a definitive answer here, but from what I can tell, Classic Neg was first introduced to Fujifilm cameras on some of the X-Trans 4 sensor cameras, specifically on the X Pro 3, XT4, and I think the X100V. And since then, it's been implemented into every following XF camera, and it's also available on the GFX cameras, I believe starting with the 50S. Listen, I'm not an expert on this particular niche topic, so please feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm off on any of those things about the Classic Neg. profiles. Fujifilm won't come right out and admit it, but anyone familiar with film can tell you that classic neg was pretty clearly modeled after Fujifilm's own Superia film stock from back in the day. Superia has been, very sadly, slowly discontinued across the globe. I believe the last remaining Superia stock under the name Superia Extra 400 was quietly put down in 2024. And it's a real shame because people love Superia for the more stylized look that it had over some of the other popular films like Portra and Ultramax, both of which are still being made today. And those are great film stocks too, so don't hear me say that I dislike those. Anyway, Superia is well known for its pretty hard tonality, making images inherently more contrasty with deep shadows and very strong highlights. You got skin tones that really stuck out in the image, and there's often like a kind of a blue tone in the shadows that would sometimes skew a little green if the image was pushed a little bit in the darkroom. It's such a cool look and is really the look I imagine whenever someone describes an image as having that film look. And that's why I love classic neg on Fujifilm digital cameras so much. Fuji did a great job in taking all that was good about Superia and putting it into a digital format that's easily accessible to anyone with a Fuji camera that was made within the past 4 years or so. And I think out of all the color film sims that Fuji has right now, classic neg does the best of actually really selling you that film look. And I think there's definitely an argument to be made in favor of classic chrome as well, but something about that hard tonality in classic neg just kind of really pushes it over the edge for me over something like classic chrome. So that tonality is great, but the color shifts that classic neg introduces to your images is another amazing aspect of the film sim. Shadows get that bluish effect that you tended to see in real Superia film. Greens get a little cooler, but with a more rich depth to them. Reds get shifted to be a lighter, almost more pink kind of tone, stuff like that. And I'm not a professional colorist by any means, nor have I studied film emulsions in depth, so I'm not going to pretend to be like a seasoned expert on any of this. But what I can tell you is that every time I plop the classic neg film sim onto one of my raw files from a Fuji camera, it just brings me a lot of joy. And I hope that if you've gotten this far into the video and you've never tried classic neg, you're itching to open Lightroom or pick up your Fuji and give it a shot. But that's not the whole story, because there are some instances where classic neg, like me when I've had a single beer at the function, is just a little too much. Since the shadows and highlights are so strong in classic neg, there are some scenarios in which that's just not going to play too nicely with your images. For me, I've noticed that it can be a little too much if you're shooting in any kind of direct overhead lighting, whether that's the sun or some kind of artificial lighting if you're inside or anything. In those situations, you usually have harsher lighting on your subject's faces, especially right under the eyes, if the sun is right overhead or something. So classic neg is just going to accentuate those unflattering lighting moments even more, making it not really ideal for me at least. So in those cases, I'll usually pick classic chrome instead and just roll with that. I also don't love classic neg for traditional headshots, especially corporate ones. If you've ever done corporate work, those clients tend to prefer a more neutral look. So I found that it's best to dial back those hard tones a little bit in those situations. And I still have no problem using classic chrome for such a thing. And I'll just bring some more vibrancy into the image to make sure that we're getting enough color in there. And if I need any more contrast or anything, lower the blacks, the shadows, anything like that. Classic chrome just gives me that nice starting point if I'm in a situation like that. Now, classic neg also has a hard time in mixed lighting, meaning situations where you have some really cool lighting and then some really warm lighting. And this can be shooting under warm lights inside, but you have like cooler window light coming in, something like that. And that's where, once again, I will usually just choose classic chrome instead, since it kind of smooths that stuff out. If you're noticing here, classic chrome I still really like, but it's a close second to my favorite, classic neg. Okay, so I wanted to really quickly show you how I like to edit raw files from a Fujifilm camera using classic neg as a base. So feel free to follow along at home if you're sitting in front of your computer too, or you can keep watching to the end to find out how to get a brand new Fujifilm camera specific preset from me entirely for free. Let's go into our first photo here. I want to show you starting with the finished product. This is how I would edit this photo. It's from a recent wedding I did, and I'll scroll through here and kind of show you the sliders and how I did all of this. And then I'll show you the before and after as well. So let's actually start with the basic section here first. Obviously, some normal corrections for contrast and lighting and stuff like that. You'll notice that I pulled down texture a little bit to take some of that digital edge off of my photos. I've been really leaning towards that film look, especially that Superia look that we talked about that I really like. This was specifically shot on my Fujifilm GFX 50S2 with the Mamiya 80mm 2.8 adapted onto it. Just an amazing image. I'll zoom in and kind of show you kind of all the detail you're capturing here and all the character that you're getting. Let's take the edit off. You can see how nice and sharp it is, even manually focusing. It's pretty easy to do on these cameras. We'll zoom back out to show you how this looks with no edits on. We'll put the edits back on. So you can see that's great. You'll see I increased the vibrance a little bit as well to kind of just put a little more color into that. And I also shifted my white balance a little bit just to get the skin tones looking real nice. Down here in the curves, not a ton going on. I bring down the whites and the highlights just a little bit to smooth out some of those tones, but I still want to retain those kind of more harsh tones that you get with classic neg. The color mixer here, you'll see that in my hues, I didn't touch anything for this one. Saturation, I had to bring up the reds and oranges to help the skin tones come out a little bit more. Same thing with the luminance for the same goal. Now the color grading here is where it gets a little interesting with me. I'll show you what it looks like without the color grading. So that's without and then back on. We're just making these colors and the tones try to pop a little more. You'll notice in my midtones, I didn't shift any colors, but I did bring them up a little bit to help those skin tones come out. On the shadows, I put in a little bit of blue to kind of try to help give us that superior look with those blue tones in the shadows I was talking about earlier. And also brought the shadows luminance down a decent amount to give us some more contrast in those shadows. And on the highlights, a little bit of the opposite thing. I brought them up a little bit. Again, in an effort to make it more contrasty with our tones, but you notice I didn't do any color shifting. So the only color shifting I'm doing in the color grading is in the shadows to give it a little bit of blue. Down here, I did leave the sharpening where it is. I found that leaving sharpening where it is, but then bringing the texture down a little bit helps me keep my images looking nice and sharp, but without that digital edge. Is kind of a recent thing I started doing with my GFX files. Down here in lens corrections, I don't do anything, nothing in transform. I do not touch lens blur because I think that's stupid. The grain is where you'll see a lot of style from me, bringing the amount up a good bit, but keeping the size down and roughness up, I think gives like a nice filmy type of look. But this is all personal preference, so you're obviously free to do whatever you want. And I know a lot of people like the calibration thing. I typically don't touch calibration unless I feel like I need to. So that's it for that one. We'll move on to the next one. Another wedding shot. This is a portrait of another bride from a wedding I did recently. You'll notice I did a lot of the same things, except this one is a little more pulled back on this, the overly stylized look. I did bring down the blacks a good bit because you'll see here in my before and after, it was kind of a naturally not contrasty shot, so brought the blacks down so I could give some more contrast here. I didn't touch the texture on this one. I want a little more of that sharper look. Tone curve is the same. All that is the same. In my shadows here, notice I brought in a little bit of green. I want to kind of that pushed look where when that happens with film, you'll get more green in the shadows instead of anything else. So I put green in that one. Again, all personal preference. All of this is going to be the same as we've already seen. Grain's a little bit different in this one to give it a little more of a cleaner look. Gosh, I forget how detailed these GFX files are, how much you can zoom in. So anyway, that's it for that one. We'll go on to the next one. This is from a family session I did recently. A really cute photo, I thought. If you'll notice when you zoom in here, I kind of misfocused just a little bit. Maybe I got a little more in his hair, but it doesn't matter because the photo looks great. This is our before, and this is our after. This is another one where I did not touch texture, and I also left in the green shadows and highlights. I wanted that push look a little bit, but I did bring in some more vibrance to bring in some more of those colors in, and I believe everything else is going to be about the same. I did bring down sharpening on this one to give it a little more of that film look, a little softer, and then our grain is about kind of our normal thing. Next one, here's a picture of my daughter. There's like this 5-minute window of time near our house where the sun comes in like this during the fall months, and it's just a really, really nice look. And I'll show you the before and the after. Again, classic neg, letting those hard tones come through, giving us a lot of natural contrast. Really love that look. And you'll see that green in the shadows. I like that a lot for a push look. But on our last photo we're about to look at, we'll see how I put some blue in there. Grain, a little bit, to taste, just depending on what you like, but that's what I like. And then our very last photo here. This is actually the only photo in the collection that was not shot on a Mamiya lens. So all the rest of them were shot either on the 55 or 80 millimeter Mamiya lenses. But this one was shot on my Voigtlander 40 millimeter 1.2, which is an M mount lens adapted onto the GFX. Really really crazy unique look. I don't always love it, but when I want a nice light setup, physically light setup on my camera, this is what I will do. I'll show you the before and after here. This is the before, and that's the after. I'll take it off. You can see how I actually misfocused just a little bit, but I don't care because it was a cute moment that was captured. I'm going for feeling more than anything else. You'll see here I brought the blacks down a little bit to add some contrast in. I changed the white balance to kind of be, what I want it to be. Left the vibrance and texture where it was because I already missed focus, so I didn't need to soften it up any more than it already was. Tone curve is where it always is, and then our color mixer here the same as it has been, and then this is one where you'll see I'm putting that blue in the shadow tones, but everything else is the same. So not really a push look as much on this one, but I like that sharpening. I brought down a little bit because this Voigtlander lens is pretty bitingly sharp, even if you miss focus a little bit, and so wanted to take that digital edge off. And then same stuff down here like we've been talking about. Again, grain to taste, however you want to do it, but I like it like that. So, and that's about it. Thank you for looking at these photos. So what do you think about Classic Neg as a film simulation? Do you use it all the time like I do? Maybe you've never tried it before, but after watching this video, you're a little curious. I'd love to know your thoughts about that in the comments below, as I do my best to respond to all comments in due time. And if you like the way I edited these raw photos, I'm happy to send you towards the link in the description where you can find a few things. You'll find my Fujifilm preset pack, a collection of Lightroom presets inspired by Fujifilm colors to use on your non-Fujifilm cameras. You'll also find Fujifilm Chrome as a standalone preset entirely for free to anyone, and you'll also now find a third standalone option called Fujifilm Superior, and then in parentheses it'll say Fujifilm cameras only. That's the preset I made directly from the photos that I edited just now in this video. It's listed for $1,000, but only to turn away anyone who didn't watch this video, because if you use the super secret discount code, I'll put that on screen right here, you'll get a 100% off discount from that preset only, making it free for you as my thank you for watching this whole video. Now, I'm not putting that discount code in the description, so you only get that for making it all the way through this video. So please don't ruin the fun by putting that code in the comments. That would make you a jerk, and I'll probably just delete your comment anyway, and then maybe even block you from the channel, because that's what you get for being a big old jerk. Please check out my website and Instagram, both linked in the description. You're free to DM me on Instagram if you'd like, and ask me whatever you want, because I love connecting with people there. And you can support what I'm doing on this YouTube channel by simply liking the video and subscribing, both things that tell that dumbass algorithm that this is a video that more people should see. And if you subscribe, you're guaranteed regular photography content, as I make one video a week, all about putting the fun back into professional photography. You can support me even further by checking out my Fujifilm preset pack, again, with that link in the description. And if you don't want to do any of that, that's totally fine, because I will see you in the algorithm in 6 months.